Hey guys, behind me is something that's very special for a Wrangler because there's a lot of mosts. So that Wrangler Ecodiesel, yep, it's got a diesel under the hood, is the most fuel efficient Wrangler ever. It's also the torquiest Wrangler ever. It is also the one with the greatest range ever. And I think it's also one of the more expensive Wranglers ever. And in this video, we're going to explore all those things by taking it on the road, taking it off-road, and seeing if the holy grail of Jeep Wranglers for a lot of you off-roaders is as good as you think.
This is the Sunrider for hardtop. This can be installed at your house by a professional.
I had a craftsman come to my house and install it, and if you want this done to your Wrangler, just go to besttop.com, order the Sunrider or other products, and they'll have a professional craftsman come to your house and install it in as little as a half hour, Nathan. How easy is that?
Yeah, and look at this. It's like a convertible. Boom, open, all in one.
So let's get these questions out of the way really quickly. You may be wondering, is this the same 3-liter Gen 3 Ecodiesel that's in the Ram? And Jeep says no. They say because of the fact that it had to ford 30 inches of water, they had to move the alternator up, they had to move a whole bunch of different parts around, basically making for a very much altered and differently configured engine. Is it the same as the previous 2nd gen Ecodiesel, the one that was in the Grand Cherokee? And Jeep once again says no. They've updated almost everything. If you were to look at all the new parts, this would be almost a completely new power plant. However, it does have the same 8-speed automatic that you can get in the other Wranglers. Out on the trail today, we got a whole bunch of different colors, but I really like this color. It's called Bikini Pearl. It's kind of a turquoise color, and it's a $195 option, which seems fine. But here's the rub. This Jeep starts at $41,000. But when it's all said and done, when you add things like these camel colored seats and all the stuff that you would want in your Wrangler, you're looking at a Jeep that retails out the door at $60,000. And the biggest part of that by far is the diesel engine. That's a $4,000 option. That is a lot of money for a Wrangler. Diesels are very torquey, you know that, and I'm about to go through a pretty tricky little obstacle here. And the great thing about diesels, of course, is that you combine all that torque with this Jeep's 70-to-1 crawl ratio, and you've got a Jeep that you don't even have to get on the throttle for it to go up and over a lot of obstacles. And that's nice because you do not necessarily want to use a lot of power when crawling. It's all about picking your line and doing it smartly. And out of the 3 Wranglers that are out there, the Ecodiesel, this one of course, the 2-liter turbo, and the 3.6, this is the one that allows you to crawl probably in the most natural and easiest manner. Right now I've got my sway bar disconnected, I've got my center diff locked, because when you put it in 4-low it locks the center diff. And do we need to lock our
yeah,
we do. Okay,
flip it up and do both of them.
There you go. You can see 1, 2, 3 are locked. So this is as off-road worthy as it gets. And we're at what, 21 pounds of air in the tires. So we're air down, and let's see how this torquey diesel does. Oh, it doesn't want to turn. Axles are locked. It wants to go straight. That's always the case, isn't it? When you lock your axles. And here we go. I'm just gonna slowly crawl my way up here. And you guys can't probably tell on video, but all I see is sky ahead of me. Really, all I see is sky. And without these spotters, it would be much more difficult, because they're telling me what the line is, even though I can't see what the line is. And the torque of this Wrangler is just making me crawl up this hill, no problem. Now, I have hit the bottom a few times, and this diesel does have 2 extra skid plates to protect the DEF fluid. Oh my, this is going to be a hard turn to make. Once again, wheels are locked. It's a little butt clenchy right about now. I feel like we're going to tip over sideways. Whoa, there we go. There's that. Oh, that's what I was talking about, those skid plates. That's what you want. The one bad thing about this Jeep, specifically the Ecodiesel, is you can't get it in a manual and you can't get it in a 2-door. So write your letters to Jeep, care of your local Jeep dealership. So we've done a little bit of off-roading, but how is it on the road? Well, only one way to find out. Let's jump in the yellow one and take it over to Zion National Park and see how it does when the road gets flat and paved. You may think to yourself, as an off-roader, really what you want is all that torque. But really, when you think about it, a diesel, because of its fuel economy potential, is really suited for on-road driving like this. And keep in mind that this Ecodiesel is over 400 pounds heavier than the 2-liter turbo, and that's a significant amount of weight. And you would think you'd get more towing with that, but you don't. You can still only tow about 3,500. But what you do get, at least according to Jeep, because the government has not yet certified this, is a highway EPA estimate, I'm estimating now, keep that in mind, of about 30 mpg, and that's based on the fact that the previous generation Jeep Grand Cherokee got about 30. And to get that same amount in a Wrangler, which is basically like driving, a brick into the wind, is pretty phenomenal. Now, Jeep estimates that on a single tank of diesel, you're going to get about 500 miles or more of range. And if you're overlanding or if you're commuting to work, that means just a lot less stopping for fuel, and that in my mind is a good thing. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, but then you have to use DEF fluid, and that's true, and the work cycle on the DEF fluid is about 10,000 miles, so you won't have to change that very often. My only complaint is there's a lot of diesel clatter when you got the window open. They added sound deadening into the carpeting, into this firewall, because diesels are loud. And when you're just driving down the road at 60 miles an hour with this hardtop, very quiet, hard to tell you're in a diesel, except for the amount of torque pushes you back in your seat. But when you're kind of driving along, looking at the scenery with the window open, you do get a lot of that diesel clatter coming into the cabin. In fact, more so than in the Ram 1500 Ecodiesel. If you want the most fuel efficient Jeep that's going to give you the longest legs on your cross-country trip, this is certainly the one. I'm going to give you a little point of view to show you what it looks like when you're in the new Ecodiesel. And let's face it, guys, Ecodiesel is a marketing term. So, is it economical? 30 mpg on the highway? Probably, yeah. Probably is. but hybrids get that as well, so I think that's important to maintain. Don't see anything but sky above me, so I'm completely reliant on my spotter. Once again, don't see anything in front, so if there's a cliff up there, I'm gonna be in a world of trouble. But let's see here, hopefully there's nothing ahead of me, but yeah, there we go. Whew. That was a little scary. Let's talk some numbers. 44 inches of approach angle, 22 inches of breakover in the 4-door, and you can only get the 4-door with the Ecodiesel. So that's the only one you're gonna be able to get, at least for now. 34 inches of departure. It also has 11 inches of ground clearance. We've aired this one down to 21 pounds, so probably a little bit less than that. And of course, 30 inches of waterfording. What ends up happening eventually is when you get a Jeep, you want to customize, you want to make it your own. And once upon a time, 35-inch wheels and tires were, huge. But today, huge starts at 37s and goes up from there. If you want all this torque, and we're looking at 442 pound-foot of torque, the reason you want it is because you want to roll on big wheels and tires. And that's a valid problem that people get when they get the smaller V6 or the 2-liter. You got it.
Back driver?
Yep.
There you go.
Because what happens is, you put on bigger wheels and tires, you put on a lift, and immediately you start to run out of, not horsepower, because horsepower is really top end speed, but you start to run out of torque. And that's where this makes a lot of sense. It has about 150 pound-foot of torque more than either the 2-liter or the 3.6. I think people who want a lot of range, and I think people who really want the ultimate badass lifted Jeep are going to really appreciate this motor, because what ends up happening is when you do that to, let's say, a 3.6, the first thing you have to do once you run out of power and torque is you have to supercharge it or turbocharge it. Then you run into warranty issues, you run into reliability issues, you run into a lot of stuff that you may or may not want to go down that road. There's that old Chinese curse that goes, may you live in interesting times. And if you're an off-roader, we are certainly living in interesting times, because for the longest time, this has been the only game in town. If you wanted a hardcore off-roader, once upon a time you can get an FJ, that of course went away. Once upon a time you can get a Defender, that went away. But starting next year, the Defender is coming back, and so is the Bronco. So that old saying, may you live in interesting times, is going to be upon us very soon, because for the first time the Wrangler is going to have competition, and I personally feel that competition always makes the breed stronger. So I think that just means better off-roaders for all of us, and I can't wait to get behind the wheel of the new Defender as well as the new Bronco and see if this will be the king of the hill a year from now. This Ecodiesel comes in the Sport, the Sahara, and of course in this top dog Rubicon. And you might be wondering, when is it available? Next month. So you can order them now and pick them up at the dealership, well, in about 30 days. And I'm sure that the very first one is going to be the very first one that gets lifted. That's just the way it is with Jeeps. So let's recap. This Wrangler Ecodiesel is the most fuel efficient Wrangler ever, the one with the greatest range, and the one with the most torque. It is also the one that is perhaps the most expensive and the one that is the heaviest. So if it were my money, would I go for the 3.6, the 2-liter turbo, or this Ecodiesel? You know, that's a really hard thing to say. It depends what you want to do with it. If you want to just have a Jeep, I'd go for the 2-liter turbo. If you're gonna lift the thing and you're gonna go big ass tires, I'd go for the Ecodiesel. And if you want the tried and true Wrangler, the one that's been around the longest, go for the 3.6. Me, hell, I probably lifted, so I'd probably go for the diesel. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course, real world reviews. The good thing is, if you get a really long loan, at least the Wrangler holds its value the most, so you probably won't get underwater if you do one of those. So many choices.